It started as a normal evening. Dennis, 71, rinsed his plate, turned off the kitchen light, and lowered himself into the same chair he's used for years. He's lived in this house for more than 3 decades. He knows every sound it makes, every corner, every habit of the place. That night, nothing was wrong. The doors were locked. The bills were paid. His health was steady. Yet as he sat there, he noticed the quiet felt different. Not restful. Not calming. Just empty in a way that lingered. He wasn't sad exactly. And he certainly didn't feel incapable. What he felt was a subtle weight, like life had become slightly heavier without any clear reason. Dennis didn't see this as a problem. He told himself this was just how things are when you live alone long enough. And that's the part most people miss. For many older adults, life doesn't unravel through big mistakes or sudden changes. It shifts through small, reasonable habits that slowly harden into patterns. Patterns that don't announce themselves. They simply grow, quietly, until daily life feels more draining than it should. Mistake 1. Doing everything yourself, even when you don't need to. Dennis has always prided himself on being self-sufficient. He fixed leaky faucets, balanced bills, and carried groceries up the stairs without thinking twice. Over decades, doing things alone became part of his identity, a quiet badge of reliability. At first, it felt empowering. He was capable, responsible, in control. But over time, the weight of never sharing tasks began to show itself in subtle ways. He stopped accepting offers to join friends for errands, declined invitations to lunch, and turned down simple favors because coordinating felt like extra work. Conversations shortened naturally, not from disinterest, but from the habit of handling everything silently. He didn't notice at first that independence was slowly becoming isolation. Each declined invitation, each "I'll do it myself," trained his mind to believe that asking for help was a weakness rather than a practical choice. The quiet cost? Fewer shared moments, fewer reminders that life doesn't have to be shouldered alone. Accepting a ride, sitting with a neighbor for tea, or letting someone lend a hand doesn't diminish independence, it preserves it, keeping daily life lighter, smoother, and emotionally safer. What makes this mistake quietly worse is its invisibility. There's no sudden failure, no dramatic signal, only a gradual narrowing of experience until comfort and independence are weighed down by unnecessary self-reliance. Recognizing this subtle pattern is the first step to reclaiming both ease and freedom while still honoring one's own autonomy, allowing space for connection, relief, and a more balanced rhythm to daily life. Gently reminding oneself that shared moments can coexist with self-reliance without compromise. Mistake 2. Letting days blend together without meaning. For Dennis, mornings once carried a gentle rhythm: breakfast at the same time, a walk around the neighborhood, a favorite chair by the window for reading the newspaper. Over the years, those routines became optional, then occasional, until mornings and afternoons blurred together. He didn't notice at first. The days still passed, chores got done, meals appeared on the table. But without a subtle structure, the hours began to lose their texture. There was no sense of before and after, no gentle markers that separated one part of the day from the next. Even simple tasks, like making coffee or sorting mail, started to feel like mechanical repetitions rather than comforting rituals. When days lack shape, motivation doesn't vanish dramatically, it diminishes quietly. The small pleasures, watching birds at the feeder, calling a friend, lingering over a cup of tea, begin to fade, not because they are unimportant, but because nothing cues the mind to notice them. Shapeless time can make even healthy, independent living feel heavier than it should, like swimming in water with no surface in sight. Dennis realized that creating subtle markers, a morning stretch, a mid-afternoon walk, a window of music, made him feel anchored again. These are not obligations, they are gentle invitations to notice life happening around him. Without them, days slip past with no sense of accomplishment or rest. Slowly, hours stretch into emptiness, quietly eroding energy and engagement. By observing the patterns, adding small intentional pauses, and keeping a few meaningful rituals alive, older adults can protect their sense of presence, focus, and fulfillment, allowing each day to carry purpose and emotional clarity without pressure or rigidity. Mistake 3. Not talking about loneliness because it's just part of life. Dennis never liked to admit it, but there were evenings when the quiet in his house felt heavier than usual. He told himself it was normal, that living alone meant adjusting, and that everyone experienced it. Over time, he stopped naming the feeling altogether. He didn't complain, didn't call a friend, didn't reach out to neighbors, he simply endured. For many seniors, loneliness becomes an invisible companion, quietly accepted as part of daily life rather than acknowledged as a feeling worth noticing. The danger is subtle. Unspoken emotions begin to shape perception without being noticed. When loneliness is normalized, it grows roots in the mind, influencing mood, energy, and even motivation, all without any dramatic signal. Dennis didn't realize that each evening of silence reinforced a story that companionship was optional or unattainable, that expressing desire for connection was unnecessary or burdensome. Yet admitting it, naming it, or sharing even a small moment of honesty can shift its weight. Reaching out for a short conversation, calling someone unexpectedly, or even writing down thoughts about the day doesn't signify weakness, it signals awareness and self-respect. By acknowledging loneliness gently, older adults can prevent it from becoming a permanent undercurrent, preserving emotional safety and curiosity. Dennis discovered that even tiny acts, a neighborly wave, a brief phone chat, or sharing a memory, reminded him that he was seen, that life still held interactions, and that living alone didn't have to mean feeling alone. Over time, giving space to speak, notice, or connect quietly restores warmth and presence to everyday life. Mistake 4. Lowering the bar for enjoyment without realizing it. Dennis noticed it slowly. Meals that once felt like small celebrations, a carefully prepared breakfast, a cup of coffee savored in the morning sunlight, had become functional. Conversations with friends had shortened to polite exchanges. Hobbies that used to bring a quiet thrill were left untouched because it's not necessary. Over time, he realized he had begun accepting fine as enough. This subtle shift doesn't feel alarming at first. It feels practical, even responsible. But what goes unnoticed is how the mind adjusts. When pleasure is no longer expected, it stops seeking it. Laughter fades into the background, small joys are overlooked, and ordinary days feel flatter than they could be. For seniors living alone, this pattern quietly erodes the emotional richness of daily life, making time feel heavier and less rewarding. Dennis found that reinvesting in small pleasures, even in tiny ways, could transform the experience of a single day. Brewing tea in a favorite mug, reading a passage from a beloved book, listening to music that lifts the spirit, these aren't indulgences, they are signals to the brain that joy is still alive. By noticing and valuing these moments, older adults can prevent life from slipping into a cycle of muted expectation. Reintroducing small, intentional pleasures strengthens attention, mood, and engagement, making daily life feel warmer, more vivid, and emotionally sustaining without requiring grand gestures. Over time, acknowledging and honoring these moments reminds Dennis, and anyone watching, that living alone doesn't mean settling for less, that everyday life can still hold color, laughter, and subtle delight, and that intentionally seeking small joys quietly reinforces self-respect and emotional well-being. Mistake 5. Speaking to yourself more critically than you ever would to others. Dennis had always valued self-discipline, but over the years, living alone brought a new habit, a relentless inner commentary. If he forgot to pay a bill on time, he would replay the mistake in his mind repeatedly, questioning why he hadn't remembered sooner. If he skipped a small task, like watering the plants or tidying a corner, he criticized himself quietly, as if every minor lapse reflected failure. Even his accomplishments were often dismissed. A well-prepared meal or a productive morning passed unnoticed because he focused on what could have been better. This internal dialogue felt natural at first, almost like an invisible coach keeping him accountable, but it gradually turned the home itself into a place where he didn't feel entirely safe emotionally. When living alone, there is no one else to balance the conversation, to offer a softer perspective, or to remind you that minor mistakes are part of life. The longer these patterns persist, the more the mind treats criticism as truth, and the easier it becomes to believe that imperfection is dangerous or shameful. This quietly erodes confidence, adds subtle tension to daily routines, and makes even simple decisions feel heavy. Dennis realized that small shifts, noticing the tone of his self-talk, reframing a mistake with curiosity instead of judgment, or pausing to acknowledge what he had done well, gradually changed how his home felt. It became emotionally safer, even if the physical environment stayed the same. Speaking kindly to oneself isn't indulgent or naive. It's a practical practice that protects mental energy, reinforces self-respect, and allows seniors to move through daily life with less fatigue and more emotional ease. Over time, this gentle attention to inner dialogue can make the home a place of calm, not quiet pressure, helping Dennis and others preserve dignity while living alone. Mistake 6. Spending most days in the same few rooms. Dennis' home was familiar in every corner, and over the years, he found himself rarely leaving the kitchen, living room, or bedroom. These rooms were comfortable, predictable, and required minimal effort. At first, it seemed entirely reasonable. Why wander when everything he needed was nearby? But gradually, he began to notice subtle consequences. Hallways and corners he once walked through for small tasks became rarely used, and the rest of the house felt increasingly distant, almost like a museum of spaces no longer visited. Windowsills in other rooms gathered dust, bookshelves went unopened, and a small sunroom that had once invited morning reflection became simply another locked door. Spending days in the same limited spaces quietly narrowed his experience of the home and, eventually, the outside world. What used to be easy, stepping outside for a short walk, opening a back door to check the garden, started to feel like a task rather than a simple pleasure. The mind associates unused space with effort, and the longer rooms go unvisited, the heavier leaving even the familiar areas feels. Dennis realized that tiny shifts, walking through an unused hallway, sitting in a different chair, spending 5 minutes in the garden, made his home feel larger, more alive, and more engaging. Each small movement reminded him that his environment could support energy, curiosity, and comfort rather than fatigue and stagnation. For older adults living alone, limiting oneself to only a few rooms may feel convenient, but it quietly shrinks the world. By gently exploring neglected spaces, life can regain variety, movement, and subtle joy, preserving independence while preventing the home from turning into a narrow, confining routine. Over time, this practice keeps both mind and body engaged, reminding Dennis that living alone doesn't mean living smaller. Mistake 7. Assuming new friendships are behind you. Dennis had always maintained a small circle of long-term friends, but as years passed, he began to tell himself that meaningful connections were something for younger people, not someone in their 70s living alone. Invitations to community events, book clubs, or casual coffee meetups were declined, sometimes without much thought, because he assumed it was too late to build new relationships. At first, this mindset felt natural. His life was established, routines were comfortable, and old friendships offered familiarity. Yet over time, the absence of new connections quietly shaped his daily experience. When the brain repeatedly hears the message that connection isn't for you anymore, it begins to accept it as fact. Opportunities that once felt exciting or curious start to feel irrelevant or intimidating. Dennis noticed that even casual interactions outside his regular routine, a brief conversation at the grocery store, a neighborly wave, or a chance meeting at the library, began to feel like exceptions rather than possibilities. Avoiding these moments reinforced isolation, slowly narrowing his social world and limiting sources of joy, conversation, and support. The quiet danger of this mistake isn't dramatic. It doesn't announce itself with loneliness or crisis. It grows in subtle layers, shaping perception and making reaching out feel less natural with each passing day. Dennis eventually discovered that even small efforts, joining a weekly class, attending a community talk, or simply greeting someone new with curiosity, brought renewed warmth and stimulation to his days. New friendships don't have an age limit, and cultivating them doesn't erase independence. Instead, it quietly expands life, fills empty corners with conversation, and reminds older adults that connection remains possible, valuable, and entirely within reach, even after decades of routine. Mistake 8. Comparing today's life to who you used to be. Dennis often found himself thinking about the days when he had more energy, when his mornings were filled with errands, hobbies, and spontaneous outings. He remembered the brisk walks, lively conversations, and projects that once occupied his time and imagined how different life felt back then. On some days, he caught himself measuring the present against that past version of himself, noting what he could no longer do as though it marked a failure. At first, these reflections seemed harmless, nostalgic memories of a vibrant past. But over time, living in comparison quietly began to shape his daily experience. Each reflection reminded him of what was lost rather than what was available in the present. This mindset doesn't appear dramatic, it doesn't announce itself with crisis. Instead, it seeps into routines, softening enthusiasm, muting enjoyment, and leaving a subtle dissatisfaction behind. Meals feel less pleasurable, walks feel more laborious, and hobbies feel like reminders of energy no longer present. Dennis realized that when he stopped viewing today through the lens of yesterday, he noticed moments he had been overlooking: a warm morning sun through the window, the scent of fresh bread, a phone call with a friendly neighbor. These small experiences carried meaning and satisfaction if he allowed them to exist outside the shadow of comparison. By gently noticing what is possible now, rather than dwelling on what once was, older adults can reclaim contentment and presence. Life after 60 isn't a decline from the past, it's a different chapter with its own rhythms, joys, and quiet victories. Letting go of comparison allows Dennis to appreciate daily moments on their own terms, nurturing dignity, emotional balance, and a realistic sense of accomplishment without diminishing independence or identity. Mistake 9. Mistaking silence for peace. Dennis cherished quiet moments, enjoying the stillness of his home after a long day. At first, the silence felt comforting, a break from noise, a space to think, to read, to simply be. Over time, however, he began to notice a subtle difference. Some evenings, the quiet felt heavy, almost hollow, rather than soothing. He realized that calm solitude and emotional emptiness are not the same. Silence without connection, without small interactions or shared experiences, can slowly shape the way the nervous system responds. When this pattern persists, the body and mind start to accept loneliness as normal, even when the home remains safe and comfortable physically. The danger is quiet and incremental. Without realizing it, one begins to mistake the absence of sound for genuine peace, overlooking the undercurrent of isolation that can influence mood, energy, and emotional resilience. Dennis observed that even minor shifts, leaving a window open to hear neighborhood sounds, calling a friend for a short chat, or inviting a neighbor for tea, changed how his home felt. These moments didn't disrupt the calm, they enriched it, transforming empty silence into meaningful stillness. Recognizing the difference allows seniors to preserve the restorative benefits of quiet while preventing emotional stagnation. Silence becomes intentional and nourishing rather than an unnoticed companion of isolation. Over time, noticing these distinctions helps maintain a sense of vitality, presence, and emotional warmth. Dennis learned that cultivating small, gentle interactions within a quiet life creates a rhythm of engagement and solitude that feels alive, balanced, and emotionally sustaining, proving that peace is not just the absence of sound but the presence of meaningful connection and self-awareness. Mistake 10. Waiting too long to make life feel easier. Dennis had spent years adapting to routines that felt convenient rather than comforting. Meals were eaten quickly, chairs were chosen for practicality rather than comfort, and small pleasures were often postponed because it's not urgent. At first, these choices seemed reasonable. Life had responsibilities, and he could manage without added fuss. Over time, however, postponing comfort and joy quietly reshaped his daily experience. What once felt like a minor concession became a pattern. Small acts of self-care, enjoyable routines, or opportunities for connection were delayed indefinitely. Days slipped past with little notice, and the home, physically safe and well-kept, began to feel emotionally heavy. Waiting too long to create ease doesn't produce a dramatic moment of failure. It manifests slowly, like a subtle tightening around daily life. Dennis noticed that when he finally allowed himself small changes, a cozy blanket on the sofa, a favorite snack at mid-afternoon, a short phone call with a friend, the difference was immediate. These small shifts reminded him that life could be enjoyable without requiring grand gestures or major overhauls. For older adults, this mistake quietly robs vitality, turning existence into a sequence of obligations rather than lived experience. Making life easier doesn't diminish independence, it preserves it, allowing energy to flow toward meaningful moments instead of being drained by unnecessary friction. By acknowledging and honoring comfort, connection, and small joys early, seniors can slow the quiet erosion of ease and restore a sense of rhythm, warmth, and satisfaction to everyday life. Over time, Dennis found that these gentle adjustments didn't just make the home more comfortable, they made life itself feel fuller, lighter, and quietly richer, proving that small steps toward ease can profoundly enhance independence, dignity, and emotional well-being. Dennis sits in his favorite chair, a quiet cup of tea in hand, looking around the home he's known for decades. He hasn't changed everything, and that's okay. The house still holds habits and patterns that have been part of his life for years. What has shifted is his awareness, noticing the small things that no longer serve him, recognizing where ease, comfort, and connection could be welcomed back in. He feels neither shame nor pressure, he simply observes, gently, with curiosity and care. These mistakes, the subtle patterns that quietly shape daily life, do not signal weakness, decline, or failure. They are human. They are the rhythms of long-lived experience, the understandable habits that emerge when life gradually changes and independence remains central. At Wise Aging Seniors, we focus on this truth. Living calmly, preserving dignity, and nurturing independence are not about perfection. They are about noticing, adjusting, and inviting small, meaningful shifts into everyday life. Dennis' quiet reflections remind us that even modest awareness can ripple outward, creating moments of warmth, small joys, and subtle connection that enrich the day. Life doesn't have to be perfect to feel good. It just needs space for attention, choice, and gentle care. By recognizing what no longer serves us, and allowing room for comfort and engagement, seniors can reclaim a sense of agency, presence, and self-respect. And in this awareness, there is belonging, a reminder that you are not alone in noticing these patterns, that every thoughtful choice contributes to a calmer, more manageable, and emotionally satisfying life. Gratitude rises naturally here, for what has been, for what remains, and for the possibility of living with quiet ease, connection, and dignity, day by day, moment by moment, as Dennis, and countless others, continue on the path of wise, considered, and independent living.